So your basketball season is over and you've got stats, you got film, you got analytics from this past season. To make this your best off season yet, we got to put those things to action because most coaches don't do much with their season stats because they might not know what to do with them. So we're going to share a tool that's going to help you to learn and identify exactly what helped you win games and what actually caused you to lose games. And I guarantee that your team's going to improve this off season if you can take a data-driven approach. Welcome to The Hours. This is a podcast for coaches at all levels who want to think, teach, and lead better. I'm Mark Cassio, joined by Tyler Costin, and we call this The Hours because this is where we get to deep dive and have real conversations and spend real time on the things that actually matter. You can get the show notes and tools from today's episode in our weekly newsletter, so check out the link below. Let's get into this week's episode.
Okay, Mark, we're talking to coaches all the time. In fact, I just talked to a college coach on a discovery call when you're out here in Phoenix. When you ask a coach at this point in the year, after their season's done, hey, how did your season go? What's the most common response that you get?
They tell me how many wins or losses they had or what the result of the season was, whether they made the playoffs or won a district championship or not.
Exactly. That is the answer. And internally in my head, I'm like, okay, I don't care really, because that's just the precursor. Like, how's the weather today? It really doesn't matter how you ended up with your record last season. What matters is how can you evaluate your last season in order to get better next season. That's where we are. How do you go a little deeper than just be like, we had a good season, we had a bad season, we won a championship, we fell short of our goals. Okay, great. So what? What do you do now? Coaches don't really know how to interpret all of their stats and data to then identify exactly what they can do in the offseason and then build the most efficient way to address their gaps and double down on their strengths.
Yeah, Tyler, completely agree. Analytics are good, but only if you can make them actionable. So the way my brain works is I want to put something in a spreadsheet and be able to just dive deeper into the numbers that I'm actually seeing. So I made this spreadsheet and I'm going to share it with all of our coaches that opt into our 7-day free trial. We're going to run a challenge over the month of April with all of our members. It's going to walk you through the spreadsheet step by step. You can get it for absolutely for free if you go to savvycoach.com and opt in to the trial. No obligation, no pressure. Just come in and get better.
I was looking at the spreadsheet, and when I first saw this, I felt a little bit overwhelmed. And I think a lot of people that are numeric, we homeschool, and Charlie was asking me for math help just this morning, actually. And as I even looked at her 5th grade math, I felt a little overwhelmed by all of the numbers. I have a similar feeling looking at all of this. And I think that's really why you built this, is it can interpret all the data, show the one with the most information on it, Mark, where it's like all the inputs.
The turnover sheet.
Yes, exactly. Right. So you look at that, you're like, right. But what I think is amazing about what you've built and what I'm excited to learn from you, if you go back to the summary, is okay, you can input all this information and it gives you your whole at a glance at one place. I would imagine this. What if we asked a coach, how did your season go? And the coach is able to say, I was really happy with our defensive rebounding rate. It was the best it's ever been. And it's really a byproduct of how we structured our practice. I'd be like, whoa, that coach is unique, different, and on the ball. And for everyone listening, why couldn't you be that coach? Wouldn't that just flabbergast a parent or a booster administrator? Yeah, how'd the season go? As I've been diving into the 4 factors, we're actually at the top half of our entire league in these 3 of the 4 factors. But this 4th one, we fell behind. And so I'm designing my entire offseason to really improve lowering our turnover rate. Because as you know, parent of freshman person that thinks they know something about basketball, as you know, turnover rate is one of the 4 things that has the greatest impact on winning. And your son, in fact, is at the bottom of our turnover ladder. And that's what he particularly needs to get better at in order to get more playing time, which I know is the next question you're going to ask. This coach is so much more intentional and thoughtful than me. And you show that by how you answer questions like, how did your season go? Anybody can look up your record, but they don't know the factors that led to the wins and losses, and going one layer deeper, really is an opportunity to educate.
All right, let's look at four factors. So, Tyler, you mentioned four factors earlier. You mentioned turnover percentage. Let's just talk a little bit about for members that or for listeners that may not know what four factors are. They probably know what it is, but haven't used this terminology. This all comes from Dean Oliver's four metrics that determine winning and losing the most. And if you have Huddle or Synergy or any type of stat program, they probably give you these four things: it's effective field goal percentage, turnover percentage, rebounding percentage, and free throw factor. And the idea is that these are the most important metrics that determine winning and losing with your team. But I would also argue that some coaches, I guess, take two approaches. Is one, like they don't really pay attention to these things and don't know how these particular stats impact their team, or they look at this and they set specific goals for four factors of like, all right, our field goal percentage should be 50%. Where I've taken a different approach is every game, we just want to win as many of these battles as possible. So you have four of these battles between these four factors in every single game. And the cool thing that this spreadsheet or this tool is going to do for you is as you input your numbers, it's going to put it into this season report, but it's also going to give you your record when you won effective field goal percentage and when you lost effective field goal percentage. So shout out to my guy, Jason Template. We used to work together. This is his season as a glance at a glance. He is in his first year at Isidore Newman in New Orleans. He gave me permission to use his stats and to say his name. So thank you, Jason. So these are real data. This is real data in here, and these are his real numbers from this season. So when he won effective field goal percentage, he was 8-4. When he lost it, he was 2-16. And it's going to give you your average effective field goal percentage in wins and your average effective field goal percentage in losses. It's going to do this for all of your numbers too, for turnovers as well. But this is going to give you a really clear picture of which ones or which factors actually impact our team the most, because I would argue that these are not created equal. In fact, effective field goal percentage and turnover percentage are more important than rebounding and free throw factor. But I also think that one or two or more of these could be more important to your team based on your style of play. For example, my team shoot the three a lot. In fact, on this sheet, it's going to tell you your 3-point rate. So for Jason's team, 40% of their shots were threes. My teams were around 50%. So effective field goal percentage was really important for us because we were shooting, anywhere from 25 to 35 threes a game. And we all know effective field goal percentage weights 3-point shooting higher. So that was a huge metric for us. I would say when we won effective field goal percentage, our record was probably better than, 8-4 or 66% win percentage just based on our style of play.
You know, as we talk about offensive efficiency as being one of the four factors, what's the most common concern or pushback you get from coaches when you talk about that particular factor?
I don't know if this is pushback, but I actually had this conversation recently. They don't know their numbers. So, for instance, like I just scrolled down the shot selection here. And if you're going to improve your field goal percentage, you got to improve your shot selection. So I'll ask a coach, well, how many of your shots were what we would call nines and sevens? For those that aren't familiar, that's our Savi shot scale. A 9 or a 7 would be a wide open layup or a wide open three. I think you should know in every single game what percentage of your shots were those. So on the season, now I just measured a couple games of Jason's. 58% of their shots were wide open or nines and sevens. So now going into next year, we can set that bar a little higher. Like when I'm looking at these, his numbers, it's going to give you points per shot when you've shot nines and sevens. It's going to give you points per shot when you shot what I would call small advantage, like 8, 6s, 5s on the Savvy shot scale. And then I just counted a 3 as everything that wasn't a 9 through a 5. You can see that his points per shot were 0.63 points per shot when they shot what I would call like a bad shot or a neutral shot. And when they shot big advantage shots, they were scoring over 1 point per shot. But what stands out to me is 31% of their shots were what I would call bad or neutral shots. So if we can turn, 10 to 15% of those to 9s and 7s, it would greatly impact his effective field goal percentage. So a very, very long way to answer your question on what a coach is push back on. I would say they don't necessarily push back. They just don't have the data to make any decisions or to figure out how they could improve their effective field goal percentage.
Okay, reply in the comments. We want more comments specifically on YouTube so that we can get into conversation with you. Could you scroll up to effective field goal percentage again real quick? Reply in the comments. What was your effective field goal percentage last season? So right now in this scenario, it was 42% was the effective field goal percentage for this team. Put your effective field goal percentage in the comments. Now, if you have to look it up, that's okay. But feedback, if you have to look it up, you're not where you should be. This is something you got to know, like your name. If we said put your name in the comments, you would know that. If we said put your record in the comments, you would know that. But your record is not as important as your effective field goal percentage because you can actually control it. And if you improve your effective field goal percentage, your record will improve. A record is just a test. It's an outcome of many factors, these 4 being the most important, effective field goal percentage being number 1. Mark, do you know who was this is my biggest pushback, and I'm gonna get there in a roundabout way. Do you know which NCAA men's college team had the number 1 defense in the country this season?
No, but I'll guess Houston.
The study that I read, or the report that I read, was Gonzaga. Does that surprise you?
Yeah, it does. Not for any other reason, just I didn't hear a lot about their defense this year.
Looking at 2 different metrics. One has Gonzaga 1, one has Gonzaga number 2. So they're one of the top in the country. Gonzaga, would you say that Gonzaga underachieved, overachieved, or achieved about the expected success in like postseason this year?
I'd say they're on par.
On par. Okay. Why is Gonzaga, if they had the best or one of the best defenses, why are they not like a number 1 seed?
I would guess their offense wasn't up to par with their defense.
Absolutely. They weren't even in the top 10 in teams in the tournament in offensive efficiency. I'm looking at it right now, and the one that I'm looking at had them at like 20 plus. So here's the biggest pushback that I get. But defense wins championships. It's on t-shirts everywhere. Defense wins championships. And that is incorrect. Offensive efficiency is more impactful than defensive efficiency. Now, of course, your defensive efficiency will impact your opponent's offensive efficiency in any single game. But winning championships, what all of the data tells us, is a team's overall offensive efficiency against all teams' defenses, and how your offensive efficiency stacks up against other teams' overall offensive efficiency is more impactful on your success than how your defensive efficiency stacks up overall on defensive efficiency. How does this actually play out? How do we get super simple? If your team is number 1 in offense and number 10 in defense, you will do better than if you're number 1 in defense and number 10 in offense. It's just that simple. And so that is why we track offensive efficiency. Reply below, please. What was your offensive efficiency as measured by your effective field goal percentage last season? It's not right, wrong, or indifferent. Let's just see what it looks like. I would ask you to include what level you coach: youth, middle school, high school, college, pro. What was your efficiency? We have a lot of players that listen and watch this pod. Find it out. Mark, what percent of high school players know their team's effective field goal percentage?
5.
0 to 1 players per team would know their team's effective field goal percentage. Let me talk to the players for a minute. If you don't know this, you're not serious about your team winning and you getting more playing time. If I wanted to get more playing time from my head coach, Mark, here's probably the best case that I can make. Hey, coach, I've been looking at our stats, crunching some numbers, and our team's effective field goal percentage is 46%. Coach, my effective field goal percentage is 55%. Don't you think that I should be getting more shots and more playing time?
Not a bad argument.
How would you respond to that argument?
Honestly, as a coach, I'd be looking to justify why this player would.
That's a very honest answer. That's a very
So I'd be like, well, I mean, you're only taking 4 shots a game.
That's my point, coach. I'm
Yeah.
only getting 4 shots a game. I am ready to increase my volume, but I'm only playing 5 minutes a game. Just give me 10 minutes, and if my efficiency stays up, give me more. Why wouldn't you? Like, the volume is not what I control. You're controlling my volume.
Yeah. I got, hey, let's run floppy for you. Like just
Nope,
everything. Yeah.
that's not my game. Just give me the ball and let me cook, okay? That's
Yep.
my game.
Clear out. You said something that was really, really important that I want to make sure we don't lose. When you're talking about offense and defense with Gonzaga, you said defense winning championships is incorrect. I would agree with you. Good offense beats good defense. You got to be able to score the ball. But you said in there that yes, your defense will impact your opponent's effective field goal percentage, right? So that's how you would win, that side. And that's why we're talking about winning the battle. So does and actually, I'm on the page right here. So I'll zoom into this one and you can see their season result where we just have their opponent, their effective field goal percentage, their opponents, whether they won it, what the differential was, and then what the result was at the game, which you'll typically find is when they won effective field goal percentage, they won the game. But there's so much that goes into effective field goal percentage. For instance, how much do we turn the ball over, right? When we turn the ball over, we get 0 points per possession. And rebounding. So a great way to improve your effective field goal percentage would be to increase your offensive rebounding percentage because your second and third chance shots are going to likely be a better shot than your first shot that you get. So you could actually look in here and say, okay, when we won offensive rebounding percentage, we typically won the game. And I don't know if that's true for your team or not, but that's the whole point of why we're doing this is figure out really what were your inputs to get the output of effective field goal percentage. Was it when your shot selection was, your nines and sevens was 65% or more of your shots? You almost always had the effective field goal percentage that got you in the win column. Whatever it is, that's the point of what we're doing this month is to dive in and know what you're looking at. Quick story, was talking to a college coach that we consult for, and their record was like 25-4 at this point. So having a really, really good year. And she reached out and said, hey, we need to improve our rebounding percentage. I feel like that's costing us games. And I'm like, well, you've hardly lost. So what do you mean by costing you games? You've only lost 4 games. And she just was going on feeling. She was like, I just feel like we're not rebounding well enough. So I said, okay, well, what is your rebounding percentage? Because a metric that I have typically used is does your rebounding percentage add up to 100? So you can look at, again, my guy Jason, no shade, but very rarely did his rebounding percentage add up to 100. But when it did, they won or had a chance to win. And typically you could say, oh, well, their rebounding percentage was 114 and they lost. I guarantee you in this game, they probably lost effective field goal percentage or turnover percentage because that impacts winning and losing the most. So that's the conversation that I had with this coach. I said, so what is your rebounding percentage? She was like, I don't know. I'm like, okay, well, let's figure that out and see if your offensive rebounding percentage and your defensive rebounding percentage are adding up to 100. Is that like a magic number? No, but it's a good barometer to be at to know if we're truly deficient in those areas. Because if you're consistently getting to that 100% mark, I would argue that that's not costing you games. It's somewhere else. Maybe it's the free throw factor, turnover percentage, effective field goal percentage. But back to my original point, all of these things are related, right? The more you turn the ball over, in fact, I'm going to go back to this season report. This was really cool. So the more you turn the ball over, the more chances you get for your opponent to increase their effective field goal percentage because those turnovers might be runouts for 2-on-1s or uncontested layups where your field goal percentage or points per possession is going to be lower because you're not getting a shot, and theirs is going to be higher because they're shooting wide open layups. For this team, when they won a turnover percentage, they were 11-1, which is just a huge factor. They won 92% of their games, and their average turnover percentage in these games was 18%. Their average turnover percentage in losses was 24%. And so there's actually a formula that I inputted in here thanks to my friend ChatGPT, and it determined, given their number of shots per game their field goal percentage per game, their turnover percentage per game, that they missed out on 15 points a game due to their turnover percentage of 22%. So if we could get that down, like, what's the metric for turnover percentage? Around 20 is like the danger zone. So you really want to be anywhere from like 10 to 15 would be on the really, really good side. Once you get above 15 into the 20s, that's when you know you're on the wrong side of that metric.
If these aren't your stats, chances are you've got an interest in this, but you're not feeling it, or like you're not feeling the pain or the excitement of it as much as if they were your stats. And most of you, if we just gave you this tool, you'd probably be like, okay, where do I start? And how do I actually use it? And do I need to sit here for 2 hours and going through it? That's why Mark has designed our 30-day challenge in April so that it's bite-sized, 5 to 10 minutes a day, laser focused, one area. We're here for every step, walking you through it. There's really 3 steps that we're going to use. Step 1, we're going to make sure you know your numbers. So you actually have to get your stats together and input them. That's going to be valuable because you'll be able to have the conversations we suggested, and you'll be able to make better decisions when you have the data. Step 2, when you know your numbers, you'll identify areas of opportunity and improvement more accurately so that you don't spend time on things that don't matter. Step 3, you need to know how to actually fix it. You can identify that you need to improve your rebounding, but if you don't know how to actually apply that information, teach better, coach better, design your environment better, emphasize, hold a standard, then the numbers won't actually change. So it's 3 essential steps. Know your numbers, identify the areas, and fix the areas. And if you do that same simple 3-step process over and over in the right areas, you will improve faster than you've ever improved before, improve faster than your opponents, and win more games. Every other coach will just be hoping that they have more talent. And that's how the majority of coaches operate. Oh, I hope we got some talent in the pipeline. I hope we get a transfer coming in. I hope Johnny works on his game this offseason because we're just going to do the same stuff we did before. And I hope our team, or hope our players are better. And if you just want to base your game on hope, honestly, Savi's not for you. But if you want to find a way to maximize what you have, regardless of the players you have, and to overachieve, that's what we're doing. We're looking to wring every last drop out of what you can do as a coach to impact your team's success. And here's the good news. Just being intentional in this way will separate you from 90% of your competition. 90% of your competition. And, that's what has allowed Mark and so many of our other members in years 2, 3, year 1 to win state championships, to win district championships, to have their best seasons yet, because the bar is not that high. And that's the case in every single walk of life. It just takes a little bit more to separate yourself. And probably the reason most coaches haven't done this, Mark, is maybe they didn't know how, but also it does take a little bit more effort.
Yeah, it got to be intentional, right? Okay, so question. What adjustment do you think most coaches make from season to season on the offensive side? So, all right, we didn't score enough points, we didn't win enough games. What is the one thing that they default to doing differently the next year?
A new offensive system.
Perfect. I was going to say new offensive system, more set plays,
Yeah.
maybe even install different actions. Maybe it's oh, we got to run ball screens now, right? So and so is in the Final Four and they set a lot of ball screens, or UConn runs a lot of sets, or whatever it is. But what if shot selection was the issue? Then you're actually not doing anything to improve your team's effective field goal percentage, because a different
You're just going
offense.
to get the same shots in a different way.
Exactly. A different offense, a new action. Yeah, you get the same shots in a different way. So that is what leaves coaches guessing, or that frustration of you feel like you're doing everything that you can to make your team better. So then it's, we shift the blame to something else or someone else, like, oh, well, our players aren't good enough, or we don't practice hard enough, whatever it is. So like you said, you got to identify your numbers first, which is what we're going to do in week 1. After week 1, you're going to have this entire spreadsheet filled out for your team. So if you do join our 7-day free trial, you're going to get a ton of value for free. The next 3 weeks is where we're going to dive deeper into it. Okay. So your turnover percentage was 22%. Okay. Well, how'd you turn the ball over? Was it a skill decision, or was it a skill turnover or a decision turnover? And then what was it? What did we lose the ball? Did we throw forced passes? Were they bad passes? And then we're going to help you design practices around how to improve your turnover percentage. It's going to help you really formulate your entire offseason plan in regards to player development, but also your team concepts as you head into your summer season.
Here's a hot take. I would argue that too many coaches indirectly attempt to influence their team's shot selection by play calling. If I run this play for a 3, we're going to get a better shot than if we don't run this play for a 3. If we run this play for a post up, we're going to get a good shot. If we run this play for our best player to get downhill, we're going to get a better shot. So the outcome that most coaches want when they teach plays, when they teach sets, when they have a huge playbook, the outcome that they actually want is better shots. But they get there by teaching plays, not by teaching what better shots are or are not by equipping players with the why and the decision making. What do you think? Do you think that is why coaches do it? Or do you like indirectly or directly?
Yeah, I would say that's why they do it. I would also say they don't know, they just might not know conceptual offense. Like, I know you're saying maybe you run a conceptual offense and you want a better shot, so let's call a play. But from my experience, there's like transition, and then in the half court, it's like, well, what do you do when you don't have an advantage? Well, you run a play to get that advantage instead of running actions to create advantage that all fit within a conceptual offense.
Yeah. Yeah, agreed. And so, if you're a coach that has a big playbook or has put in a lot of quick hitters or has run a lot of plays, tracking your shot selection, teaching shot selection, rewarding good shot selection will actually get you what you want faster and easier. I'm not saying don't run any plays. I'm just saying do this first. We did a scrimmage last night against our club team, high school club team played a JUCO team. And it was a really good game. We ended up winning by 1. The JUCO players were much stronger, probably more skilled. But down the stretch when it was tight, every time down, guess what they did?
Set a ball screen, called a play.
They called a play. And as they called a play, and the plays were all pretty similar, it was for their best player to shoot a 3. We actually increased our ability to create turnovers, and they took a lot tougher shots. Whereas the way they were scoring throughout most of the game was, care to guess how they were scoring mostly during the game?
Transition.
Absolutely. And so then they're like, oops, game's on the line. It's 1-point game. Back, slow it down, run a play, which actually we were down, which actually allowed us to catch up and eventually pull out a win by 1 point because they're like, let's control the game. Let's slow it down. Let's run a play. It's just it's a little counterintuitive, but it's what we believe and teach at Savi.
All that reminded me of a conversation I had with a coach in Oklahoma. He is a member, and he sent me a text and said, hey, our season's over. Would love to connect with you and talk about it. We really spent a lot of time on shot selection this year and emphasized it. I said, awesome. What percentage of your shots were 9s and 7s? And he was like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, you said you spent a lot of time on shot selection. What percentage of your shots were good shots? And he was like, well, I don't know. And I was like, well, did you measure shot selection in game or post game from film? And he was like, no, like you did that when you were coaching? I was like, yeah, absolutely, man. We got a resource inside the membership. Here it is. You just fill it out after the game. Let's say you take 60 shots. It probably takes you 5 minutes to do that. You're just inputting 0, 2, or 3 as the result. And he was just like blown away. And I'm like, man, like that's the one thing that I would encourage coaches to measure, because a common question we get is, what should my assistants be doing during the game? What do you talk about at halftime?
They
right?
should be yelling at the refs.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
If not the ref, like they should be yelling at a player at the very least,
Yeah.
Yell at somebody. But yeah, I mean, if you're not measuring shot selection, then you have no idea where the meat on the bone is, like where your opportunities are to improve your effective field goal percentage. So highly encourage you to do that if you could measure one thing next season. So if you haven't done that this year, just by getting in and getting this resource and seeing your shot selection broken down, I think it's going to give you probably the most amount of data. If I had to pick like one sheet for a coach to get in here and dive into, it'd be the effective field goal percentage one.
Link in the description below. Reminder, comment, what was your effective field goal percentage last season? And we hope that we can work with you day in and day out to actually go through this whole sheet with you as we're kicking off this challenge. And at the very least, know your numbers. Thanks for hanging out with us. Can't wait till next week. Until next time, stay savvy.
Stay savvy.